and hi, Brigitta. We're having the next session of our Tenity podcast. Very happy to be here. Brigitta, you are our head of operation of the Zurich Hub, and I'm heading the investment office or investment business of Tenity. And today we have a chance to talk about the Swiss market, in particular the Fintech space. Maybe as a starting point, do you want to share about your background and what brought you to Tenity?
Thank you so much, Andrea, and thanks for the great introduction as well. So I actually have a finance background. I have over 18 years of experience also in international businesses. I started my career in the pharmaceutical sector, and I have transitioned into wealth management after almost 9 years at Novartis. I was always excited about finance, and while I was in wealth management, I also got in touch with digitalization, kind of building a new private banking back at the days for Credit Suisse. And this is also how I get into the fintech ecosystem and get to know F10, or how we call it today, Tenity. I've been also a mentor. And I've been also running my own startup for 5 years before I joined Tenity as a head of operations.
Wow, that sounds like a great wealth of experience. I'm a new joiner at Tenity. I'm here now since a couple of months. Before that, I have a background in economics, spent the first 10 years in the corporate environment, mostly on the private equity and venture investment side. Before then also venturing into the more entrepreneurial space, where I also founded my own company and later on ran the operation of another startup. So Tenity for me was the ideal sort of intersection between my two sort of previous worlds, which I experienced, being the entrepreneurial side and the corporate and investment perspective. And with that, I'm curious what how we can develop further in the fintech space and in particular drive innovation, not only in Switzerland actually, because as you know, we're running 6 hubs globally, so we're truly believing in the local ecosystem play. And that brings us to Tenity, right? And our offering today. So beside open innovation service business on the corporate side, we also run our own accelerator, and we are a pre-seed, seed stage VC investor ourselves, which sort of creates an ideal combination and a lot of interesting synergies. And I think we can discuss about that further.
Yes, absolutely. I think what is also very exciting, as you mentioned, Andrea, that we are an early stage investor. So we are scouting over 4,000 startups, for each and every badge. And of course, this also gives us an amazing insights into what are those key trends globally, as we are having the global operation, which is, of course, kind of like a two-sided benefit. One is for investment, so kind of really being at the pulse of innovation. But on the other side, it also brings a lot of knowledge and insights for our corporate partners, which we are working together on a daily basis. Andrea, from your perspective, what are those kind of key trends you are most excited about, and what you also see more and more kind of coming up in our deal pipeline?
Yes, so as we focus on Switzerland today, I think clearly if we look at the Swiss market and the Swiss location for fintech, I think we look back on a long tradition of financial service excellence, and that clearly drives a lot of innovation, which we also see reflected in different types of business models. Which then also create a lot of demand for Swiss banks, but also other financial institutions. Then the stable regulatory environment clearly helps, and that also supports innovation, as we have seen in several cases, and we'll discuss that a bit later in more detail. But there's been a very progressive way, which opens up windows for different type of innovation and and as said, different new themes that are covered. And then the unique position Switzerland has when it comes to the cross-border offering, especially of financial services, wealth management, that is clearly something we look at. However, from a Tenity overall perspective, the way we define fintech is quite broad. That also includes solution in the proptech, insurtech, climate fintech angle. So there's a lot we cover, and also with new technologies coming in with a more generic approach, as for example, AI provides a lot of additional opportunities, which then click in different ways and find different forms of application. Same as when it comes to data security topics, for example. But I guess, we're looking at the same topic from both sides. I guess these are exactly also what is of interest if you talk to your corporate clients. Shall we maybe dig deeper and just talk about a few of the topics you recently covered in the corporate program side?
Yes, absolutely. Really happy to. I think there is basically the area of sustainable finance, which we see regularly also come up. This year, we have also conducted several startup searches and deal flow pipeline, specifically focusing on climate change, and then how climate change is also impacting small, medium-sized businesses, larger-sized businesses, and how actually banks and financial institutions can support basically the private sector in that very crucial transitioning journey. So we have been actually focusing quite much on business resilience topics, and also scouted different startups in this area. And what we also realize now that, of course, climate change, this topic has been already here for a while, and now also our corporate clients increasingly looking into biodiversity, since, of course, how to actually create positive impact, double maturity. This is a very important topic as well in the field. One is, of course, on the reporting side. Reporting is still very important, and we see also very interesting startups like, for example, Pelt8, who is also revolutionizing this area. But on the other side, we also see kind of increased interest on looking into really kind of green financial products. Green, when I'm saying that, of course, it's very important that from the regulatory perspective as well, I think that the entire in Switzerland, there is obviously a big focus on greenwashing, and to ensure that also these green financial products are also according to the kind of the regulatory requirements. So this is also one of the topics which we have been working together with our clients. We are also running a big accelerator program together with Commerzbank. Next week is going to be the Impact Festival in Frankfurt, where also Tenity, together with the 10 innovative startups in sustainable finance, also going to participate. And for us, of course, it's a great opportunity to validate our assumptions, to really look for use cases, and also enable the startups in that field to directly collaborate with their corporate partners.
That sounds great. I can just ask, because you mentioned the biodiversity in our current batch. As you know, we run 2 Fintech accelerator program per year out of Zurich. And we have one promising new startup actually securing access through securitization into nature as capital. And this is exactly what this startup is planning to do, in actually providing access into, for example, reforestation projects who are meant to generate a return as well, and sort of turns nature into an investable asset. So this is one of the topics which fits really well what you just explained. And also at that point, interesting to mention, as you know, Tenity also recently launched its Climate FinTech report, where we each year we analyze sort of the trends and the different sub themes startups appear, right? And what trends we can analyze, and it's interesting to see how the whole topic also attracts more and more interest from the investor side, where the whole, as you know, the whole VC market has seen a tremendous sort of drop in terms of investment volume over the past 12 months. But this area in particular has created a lot of interest. And so there's clearly the shift is also visible and reflected in the statistics there.
But I also wanted to mention that I think what is also you were actually referring to the regulatory environment in Switzerland, which is also very supportive. And I also feel like that when it comes to sustainability and regulations, that it's a very market-based approach, which means that the Swiss approach is rather opposing the prohibitive approach, but always tries to find kind of an evidence-based, market-based approach also for regulation. So in the finance industry, it is also kind of important to say that the Swiss Banking Association also introduced the self-regulation for sustainable finance. So we also see that customers are also more and more educated on ESG considerations. Let it be kind of during the kind of, for example, mortgage discussions, or when they are also buying financial products. And this also means that there is more education also on the advisory side in the financial institutions. So what I'm also kind of expecting that this sustainability consideration and criteria for investment and also mortgage product and mortgage advice is going to be even further emphasized in the coming years, which of course can also further push the innovation in that field in Switzerland, and
yes,
obviously in the European setting as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Maybe if we move on to another big topic, which everyone is talking about AI, right? And of course, we see and feel it everywhere. It's a lot about process efficiency, customer centricity. That's at least the solution I see from the investment side. I feel AI is sort of clearly reshaping everything we do, right? And of course, also in fintech. And sort of it enables an automation of existing processes and improves also customer experience and customer centricity, as I said. And sort of we see different solutions from a business model perspective. And as you know, mostly it's B2B, often software solution we look at. And it's often, it improves quality of analytics. It's providing more personalized tools, services. For example, in wealth management, we have a couple of startups, as you know, and it's also about efficiency in the end, which is measurable, which generates a positive effect, right? And so I would be interested, so from your experience working with the banking and insurance sector, what are the applications they're mostly interested in, and what are the areas where the solution we currently see are just still far away from tomorrow's implementation?
Mm-hmm. Obviously, this field is developing increasingly fast. So as you mentioned, it's incredible how many of our startups are applying compared to kind of previous years, and in AI also functionality with ChatGPT. We have seen kind of a boom in this area, and the same way also this year. This was kind of a year of AI for us also at Tenity. The majority of our programs and also partner programs, which we are running for our corporate clients as well, was actually focusing on the application of AI. And what I can also say that obviously the first kind of like entry point, and this is also where we have been searching and scouting the most, is really on the efficiency side. So how can you make, for example, information and data available also for employees so that they can really kind of minimize kind of a very, very administrative part of their work, and then refocus to much more value added. And I'm just going to give you some examples, which we have also seen works very well. I mean, if you think about how much time, like, for example, a compliance officer is spending on searching on different regulatory changes, regulatory applications, it's actually mind-boggling, especially that they have to also know about the different kind of cross-border implications in the financial services. Currently, we are working in an experimentation with Amplify, the startup in our current program, looking into, for example, how you can actually utilize AI and AI models to do this work for compliance and then risk officers as well in the bank, obviously to limit the time they spend in researching, but also to be able to interpret the information, to put it into a kind of in a reporting format, so it's also very easy to interpret, and of course it also helps them to be prepared and then roll out into the organization. So this is maybe one area where we see like kind of gathering large amount of data, making basically sense, creating kind of a digestible format of information, which is also supporting the decision making. So this is actually one side of it. The second part was obviously much more client facing and client focused innovation. In the wealth management industry, obviously there are many different touch points with the clients. Let it be over email, chat, telephone calls. So there is a lot of information which is going into the relationship managers. Now, this information can be captured also with the help of AI, a much more structured way. What has been discussed, for example, with the client, also interpreting, defining concrete actions, next steps with the client, and also to personalized recommendations, even in the financial services area. You can use AI for that, for example, to create investment proposals or refine investment proposals. And I think what we also see, for example, you can also have kind of an automated compliance check to make sure that this proposal is also suitable and applicable and also compliant, also, for example, in the cross-border situation, which obviously saves, again, a lot of time and also increasing the client's time, which is on the hand of the wealth managers, which is, of course, creating a lot of value add also into the organization. Maybe the last...
solution. Yeah. It's in the end the solution for everything, huh? As it sounds.
It feels like, yes.
Indeed.
Maybe to take other step, I think the third area where we have been also searching, and I think it's taking in the next step, is like how you can also apply AI-based approaches, for example, to help and support wealth managers, but also asset managers to create personalized and bespoke portfolios. Let it be traditional assets or crypto assets as well, and also kind of integrate kind of an AI insight platform, which helps as well to basically build much more robust portfolios in the asset management area. So we also have, for example, a startup who work together, ISOT, which has been also researching in this field for now several years, and they have been also just recently launched their new functionalities.
Great. Maybe moving on to another big topic, as Switzerland, with its crypto valley history, right, has another big topic. I think we cover, right, in the landscape. I think it was founded somewhere the early 2013, 12 around. I think it's been a while now, about 10
Yes.
years. And clearly that marked a milestone, right? Also, I think for the Swiss markets. It has attracted over 1,000 companies in the meanwhile, specializing in blockchain, cryptocurrencies. And as this is also one area we cover, I think the digital asset topic is something we tend to see a lot also when we source for new startups. And with that initiative, Switzerland clearly set the ground to attract a lot of such startups. But of course, we also see it, for example, in Singapore, where we have a local presence, both on the corporate innovation and investment side. So also here we see topics, even traditional banks now moving more into the digital asset space, offering cryptocurrency trading, custody services. And also there we see a lot of new topics coming up, and that clearly illustrates that there is more movement. On the other hand, we're still missing, this sort of commercially viable new business models to attract the broader interest. So as I still see this to be in its early phase, also when I look at the adoption rates and user integration, usability, right, with the sort of classic interface. So the Web 2 versus Web 3 story and the transition which needs to happen at some point. What is your experience in that field, and what is the concrete demand from a traditional corporate view?
It's very interesting because I think the technology, blockchain as a technology, so if we kind of like strip away the crypto currencies, kind of different digital assets, I think it holds a huge amount of possibilities. And what we obviously saw also in the past, often that companies had kind of this technological solution, and they were actively looking for a use case, like how actually we can apply blockchain, and where could we also create more value? What are those use cases where it also really makes sense to have blockchain as a key, basically transformative technology as well. Interesting. I think where we see, I would say, the most uptake currently is a real world assets. So kind of tokenization of the real world assets. I think this is also where I would kind of see an increase in this area. And what I also what I would also be interested in, and I think I'm kind of looking out for once also Switzerland moves on and, for example, introducing the new digital Swiss franc itself, like how also the traditional financial institutions, which I still feel that they are still quite hesitant with the technology, especially after continuing the crypto winter. There was also a bit of a trust lost in this industry because of the fraud cases, the scams which were coming out. So I think they are still trying to find the way how to deal with the technology itself, and what are those key use cases where they would like to also kind of double down. I know that our key corporate partners, they do have dedicated departments as well looking into the digital assets. They have launched already offering as well in this area. And I think what you said, the adoption rate is still to be seen. And of course, the other point, maybe, but I wanted to mention that what will be also interesting in when the MiCA regulation is going to come into effect, where, of course, traditional financial services, they need to also exercise very much prudency when it comes for digital assets, which might also going to impact the adoption. How do you see that?
Yeah,
Also from the investment perspective.
yeah, I can fully align with what you said. In the end, the technology allows for many potential solutions, but in the end, what we're looking for is always the product solution fit on one hand, which is often given because the technology allows for a lot new possibilities. On the other hand, is the market fit there, and that's what we're heavily depending on when it's about scaling a business and also securing then financing to further grow and invest into the technology itself. So I agree that clearly is where we feel that this lagging effect comes into play, right? Because in the end, if you have a great starting point, but then where does it clip? Where does it find its real application in the market? And in the end, if those startups, they're looking to cooperate on a real new product, for example, they need the support of the established incumbents. And if that just takes a little bit more time, clearly we'll have to cover it, right? Absolutely.
I think we would still have time maybe for another trend where we have been also working a lot on this year. And for me, it's also one of my big passion is embedded finance, open banking. I think what we can also call nowadays open finance, because I think it's actually spreads even further. So this year in Switzerland, the new kind of regulation came in force. So the bigger players, they also have to enable instant payment. I think it's also kind of brings a lot of mindset changes as well in
And
the
expectations.
financial and expectations, also customer expectations, how they think about financial services. And also another aspect, which I find, of course, very much fascinating. We have been holding a roundtable around this topic with the key ecosystem players here in Switzerland, like how financial services are also going to be collaborating in the future, how data is going to be exchanged, obviously for the good of the customer. So we want to have obviously more competition. We want to have more kind of valued, personalized, democratized financial services as well. Obviously, it comes with some costs. Since data is involved, data need to be shared. How do you actually see from your experience what are kind of the necessary, who are the key players in Switzerland in this area, and maybe where do you see kind of the biggest chances as well that kind of open finance will be implemented?
Yes. So you mentioned the cost aspect. I think there's a lot of resistance also, because if you look at the value chain and who owns in the end the customer relationship, or who has the closest relationship, and who owns what part and generates revenue from what part of the value chain, that is all about to change, right? I think with this new possibility which open finance would provide, that opens up the market for new service providers who, in the end, if you look at it from for example, end consumer service offering, which is independent of, if we talk about the banking sector, for example, and retail aspect, that becomes independent from where the actual account is held. So that also diminishes some part, a majority part of the relationship to the end consumer or end investor in that case, which I think we all understand, right, where the resistance comes from. But the field which is opened up, and that is in the end, I think what creates the big shift in the market. It then becomes quite easy to think of new service offerings on top of an existing more infrastructure sort of offering. But that also puts then the question mark: what is the role of a traditional bank going to be going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Is it more of the infrastructure provider? With the service in the background, and you have a different interface to the end investor, or are the incumbents able to sort of cover and the whole aspect themselves? But it will ask them to come up with new sort of product offerings.
Mm-hmm.
So that
you can also think about it. Maybe if you're like a bigger bank that you want to be kind of dominating in a certain domain, so you can also maybe create so-called like marketplace as well for your existing clients. But of course, then you are kind of the domain owner, so you have to make sure that, of course, you properly vet these third parties who are also providing these services, because once they are in your ecosystem, then it's basically almost the same thing. Then you are providing the services for the clients. They're gonna ask for exactly the same scrutiny, and they're gonna have the same expectation.
Yes, I mean we've seen similar offerings already, even before it was possible the way it is today, where from the customer experience, it seemed to be all digital, easy accessible. But we all know in the background it wasn't the case. There was still a replication of old traditional procedures taking place. For example, thinking of opening up a new banking account through some nice new digital sort of banking interface. But in the background, it was not fully streamlined. And that also had an impact on how the revenues were split. But if that problem is solved and you can easily integrate even from different banks and different accounts into one place, into one dashboard, you can play around with it and you can add all kinds of services on top. And we've seen that in other markets happening already. And I think it will be super interesting to see how quickly this picks up also in Switzerland.
We do see the initiatives which has been started also at SIX, the B-Link platform, where they already gained also traction in the financial services here in Switzerland, integrating third-party providers to API solution, and also kind of opening up then the available data. So obviously encouraging as well to create new business models, new services towards the end customers, and by integrating several key players from the Swiss market. Obviously, for me, this is also kind of one of the examples where we see that it's coming. I think from my perspective, what I feel that the speed there is not really there. So I think I would actually would like to see maybe in the future that the increasing speed. And for me, of course, it's always the question that how much needs to come from the regulatory push or the regulatory pressure to make the financial services actually more open, and to also to create more competition for the general benefit of the customers, and how much is then obviously the lobby of the traditional players, which still would like to keep basically the client relationship, the client data at their end.
Absolutely. Speaking about trends and outlook, maybe I can just also from an investment perspective. Obviously, it was a very difficult year for the venture market itself. We've seen a more than 30% drop in investment amount over the past 12 months. According to latest statistics, now roughly there are 600 plus million invested per year. which is not a lot if you think of the overall market. So we're clearly hoping to see more traction there. But still, Switzerland is one of the top 5 countries in Europe when it comes to VC activity. And if you look at the most recent deals, which have created a lot of buzz, they came mostly out of the typical medtech, biotech, but also fintech corner. So there is clearly an angle we have. I can say from our overall investment portfolio, from the current pre-seed seed fund we're investing of, about 10% is allocated into Swiss companies, as we're a global fund. So we're carefully watching the trends and what's happening on the Swiss market. When it comes to the interest from the corporate side, as you facilitate a lot of those corporate startup interaction, what's your view in terms of how do they support the Swiss startup market, because they're showing demand, right, and also the opportunity for this early stage cooperation? Do you see that trend sort of continuing to grow, or what's your view?
I think also due to the fact that many of the corporate partners, also what we are working together with, they have gone through also kind of the learning curve in terms of what does it mean to really work with startups? What does it mean to work with early stage startups? Obviously, they had to learn also how to create an internal environment that it be also kind of a sandbox which enables for fast experimentation, reducing basically the burden towards these early stage startups and the founders, since you cannot obviously handle them like a normal kind of technological vendor. And they also learned how to actually learn from each other. So rather than kind of handling them as a supplier, as a vendor, it's more about like strategic partnerships as well, exchange, learning from each other. The startups obviously have a new technology, a new way of tackling a problem, whereas the corporate partners, they have a huge amount of knowledge and experience, and obviously like an everyday kind of working experience where they can also kind of put this knowledge together. And then I think true innovation is also happening. So also this is what we are looking at with our bigger corporate partners. They actively seek out this collaboration. They actively look at opportunities, how they can also solve their problems together with the startups. Of course, when it comes to kind of fully fledged implementation of the startups, this is normally where, let's say, the importance as well, how well the technical infrastructure of the corporate partners are set up. Can they also support, for example, API integration? How do they structure their data, especially now with the lot of like AI innovation which is coming? We also see kind of an uptick of AI startups who specifically helping big organizations in their data infrastructure. And why is it important? Because with their help, it's going to be much easier also in the future to be able to scale, for example, solutions, AI-based solutions, and work with the startups from that field. So there is still a little bit of a homework to be done, I think, in a corporate side, but we definitely see also the appetite for experimentation and larger scale rollout.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of great new opportunities if the market provides the right setup. There's an important support for innovation is given if it's happening at the root cause, right, of it.
Yes, I think it's always the most important thing, understanding what is really the problem which you want to solve. It's not only about technology. It doesn't mean because we have AI, we can solve all the problems. And I think this is also some of the kind of a key takeaway, which I would also like to give to the listeners or any company who's also experimenting. working with startups or working with AI, that you really have to spend some time to understand your target market, to understand their problems, what are basically critical, important challenges which you want to also solve. How does the startup fit into your overall user journey, customer journey? Because then also the internal buy-in, also the buy-in from the customer side, and the possibility that you can also create a viable business model around it, it's actually much higher.
Yes, yes, fully agree. And from an overall perspective, also to conclude, right? If I think what we touched upon today, it's clearly, I mean, Switzerland's fintech market or landscape is set to transform. I mean, there is a significant transformation happening in the areas we discussed today. And I see this being driven by a combination, as we said, it's emerging technologies on one hand, it's regulatory advancements, but also consumer demand and adaptation and flexibility and their demand for new sort of innovation or innovative products and services. Yeah, I think with that, happy to conclude here. Thank you so much, Brigitta. Let's do
Thank you
that
so much.
again very soon.
Yeah.
And thanks a lot for all your insights.
Yes, and thanks a lot for sharing it, and thanks a lot for also listening.